Hello Pathfinder players, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm finally getting to the new classes with today's teamwork build, which is all about the Inventor. Let's dive into it. So for types of inventors, we first have the weapon inventor, which is all about having a weapon that can explode people when you hit them. Then we have the construct companion, which I think is very cool because you always have a companion that you can just repair whenever it gets damaged. But today we're talking about the armor inventor. So the armor innovation comes in two different variants. First we have the subterfuge suit, which is all about stealth. Because, it's always good to have a stealthy character that can supplement the rogue or replace a rogue if you don't have one. If you're interested in this type of inventor, Black Dragon Gaming did a video on that type, so you can check that out up in the card. Today, however, we are going to be using the other type of armor innovation, the power suits, which of course can be modified in a bajillion different ways. For example, if we really need resistance to acid and or electricity, we can take metallic reactants. But we want to start with muscular exoskeleton, so we can overdrive into a +1 to athletics that scales up. And then eventually we want to take heavy construction, so that we can get more AC and we're not slowed down by our armor anymore. When most people that play this game think of tank, they think champion. And while the champion can be an excellent tank, the inventor can be just as effective. In fact, in some situations it might even be better, because as an inventor, we're going to have a high intelligence. Champions do need at least a decent charisma, and we are going to be archetyping into champion in this build. However, the inventor's high intelligence can help in a different way. It can recall knowledge. Imagine being able to tell the spellcaster that the troll is weak to fire, while also protecting said spellcaster from the troll. Recall knowledge is such a useful ability, and that's why I love intelligence and wisdom based characters. Today's ancestry is a human Ifrit. That resistance to fire is going to help us when we roll that natural 1 when overdriving and our armor kind of cooks us a little bit. And we want to take the mechanic background so we can get quick repair in case we break our super suit. Our starting stats for this build are going to be Strength 14, Dex 12, Con 10, Int 18, Wisdom 10, and Cha 14. Now, on to the class feats we go. We are, of course, free archetyping for this build. 3 archetypes for this build, and they all help us with the same thing. Our tankiness. First class feat at first level is Explosive Leap. Especially in the beginning, we're going to be slow in this build. We probably have a speed of 15 feet at level 1. But with this feat, we can jump 30 feet in any direction without touching the ground. We do have to land somewhere solid, otherwise we fall, blah 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 blah. This is great for when we really need to protect that spellcaster from an enemy. Also, this might allow us to get into a flanking position with the rogue or another melee combatant that we have in our party. In this build, we really don't care much about stealth. And this feat will also help us when we really need to climb that wall really quickly. Next we have Searing Restoration. When we use this, us or any living creature that's adjacent to us gets 1d10 hit points back. And of course it scales up at 3rd level and every 2 levels after. Plus anyone we heal gets a flat check to end any persistent bleed damage. We can combine this with the continual recovery skill feat, and all of a sudden we're the out of combat healer. And the only limited resource we're using is time. But less time than other out of combat healers. That don't use limited resources, that is. Healing Touch will give us a little bit of in-combat healing for when we can't use Searing Restoration. Because remember, Searing Restoration has the unstable traits, which means we get to use that once in combat probably. Granted, we can only use Lay on Hands once as well, but this will give us a little backup healing for when we need it. Clockworkcelerity will give us an extra move action to use our Explosive Leap or to just regularly move. It's a once per fight thing most of the time, but this way we can move up, attack twice, and then raise our shields. All in one turn. Very useful. Next we should talk about Overdrive Ally. When we use this feat, we pick an ally within 30 feet. That ally gains the effects of our current overdrive until the end of their next turn. But they don't gain the bonus from Expert Master or Legendary Overdrive. So half our intelligence modifier, or if we're in critical overdrive, they get our full intelligence modifier. Giving the fighter a +2 bonus on damage is really good. And that's if we're just in regular overdrive. Think about giving the fighter a +4 to +6 to damage. Helpful tinkering is a bit risky, but it is something that will help our party. We get to pick an ally within reach and one of their weapons. Then we need to make a crafting check against a high DC for our level. If we succeed, then for 1 minute, the ally gets our offensive boost with that weapon. But what makes it risky is that if we critically fail on the check, then our ally takes our offensive boost damage. So yeah, risky but effective. Next, we want to take Shared Overdrive. This is just a direct upgrade to Overdrive Ally. Now when we use Overdrive Ally, the effects last until the end of our overdrive, and not just until the end of that ally's turn. However, any uses of Overdrive Ally after the first last their normal duration, as per Overdrive Ally. So now we can give another character a bonus on damage equal to our intelligence modifier for a full minute, which is almost always the entire combat. This still doesn't give them access to our bonuses from Expert, Master, and Legendary Overdrive, but giving the fighter an extra +5 to damage, that's pretty good. Of course, that's only if we critically succeed, but +2 ain't bad either. Now, since we've already got the shield block reaction from being an Inventor, we might as well take the Bastion dedication here. This will give us the reactive shield fighter feats, which will allow us to raise our shield even when it's not our turn. So if we have to do something else during our turn, like say recall knowledge, but we still want to attack 2 times, we don't need to raise our shield during our turn. We can do it during the opponent's turn, which is very handy. Nimble Shield Hand will allow us to treat our shield hand as free for the purposes of the interact action. That means we can pick up and use items that we find or have on our person even though we're carrying a shield. Like say potions of healing, for example. Alright, now let's talk about negate damage. Now we can use our reaction to just negate 15 damage coming our way. And if we add the unstable trait to this, then we can negate 50 damage coming our way. This is just any damage coming our way. This is a great last resort to keep us up, especially if we add the unstable trait to it. And our last feat on this side of the free archetype for this build is going to be Ubiquitous Overdrive. Now when we do our daily preparations, we can choose up to 6 allies. From that point on, whenever we overdrive, we can grant our overdrive to any of those 6 allies that are within 30 feet of us. They don't gain the bonuses from Expert, Master, or Legendary Overdrive, but now we can use Overdrive on up to 6 allies, and they gain the full benefits of the original Overdrive. And to top it all off, we don't even have to spend an extra action to do this. It just automatically happens whenever we use Overdrive. I gotta say, best feat for teamwork in this build so far. Before I continue, did you know that patronage at any tier gets you access to my Discord server? There you can gain access to a Google Sheet for this build, as well as future builds that I'm going to do on this channel. I was doing regular character sheets for this build, but I think doing a spreadsheet on Google Drive is probably a better idea. You can also talk to me and other patrons about anything you want, so definitely go check out my Patreon page down in the description. Anyway, getting back to the build, now it's time to talk about the free archetype. We're going to start with the champion dedication. The dedication itself isn't going to help us very much. However, it is a prerequisite for the feats that are going to help us. So in that way, I guess it does. This will give us a deity and a cause like other champions. Also, we gain trained proficiency in religion and our deity's associated skill. Our deity really doesn't matter here as long as we can be a liberator. That means picking a deity that allows us to be chaotic good. Next, we're going to need divine grace. This is another reaction, but it is going to help us with our saving throws if we need them. Specifically our saves against spells. Granted, we won't probably use this very often, but if we run into a spellcaster, we can use a reaction to get a +2 bonus on whatever spell they decide to huck at us. And now we come to the reason that we want to be a Liberator. We want to take Champion's reaction to gain Liberating Step. Why? Well, especially at high levels, there are quite a few monsters out there that like to grab people. Liberating Step is going to help us help our allies get out of that, especially if they're spellcasters. Plus, if the enemy doesn't have reach, then our ally can step as a free action. Meaning, this is going to help spellcasters if they decide to use a touch spell, assuming they don't have reach spell or something like that. Now, spellcasters don't have to spend an action stepping to avoid attacks of opportunity. I know, this build has a ton of reactions, but we're going to somewhat deal with that soon. Next on the list is Divine Ally. And we want to pick up the Shield Ally, obviously. This is going to give our shield more hit points, which is going to help us better protect our allies. And of course, make our shield last longer. Then we want to take Aura of Courage. So whenever we become frightened, we reduce the condition by 1. Also, at the end of our turn, all allies within 15 feet of us are going to reduce their frightened value by 1 as well. This essentially means that Frightened 1 means nothing to us. And Frightened 2 is Frightened 1, essentially. And Frightened applies to everything, which means getting rid of that is going to be great. Then of course we want to pick up Shield Warden. This will allow us to use Shield Block to protect our allies that are adjacent to us. That means we can protect our fellow melee combatants, and again, we can protect our spellcasters if they want to use touch spells. Great teamwork option for any tank. Then we need to take Champion Resiliency. As an Inventor, we're only going to have 8 base hit points per level. That means we could use some extra hit points. So this feat will give us 3 extra hit points for every champion archetype feat we have. And 21 extra hit points is nothing to sneeze at. Now we get to finally address the issue of whole bunch of reactions. We'll be taking Quick Shield Block here. This essentially means we can shield block and use another reaction in the same round. We can do 2 shield blocks. We can reactive shield and shield block. We can Divine Grace and shield block. We can Liberating Step and shield block. Essentially, we get an extra reaction that we can only use for shield block. So this will somewhat solve our problem of a whole bunch of reactions in this build. But honestly, having a whole bunch of options is actually good. We just need to look at the situation and figure out which reaction would be the best in that situation. We'll be taking one more archetype for this build, so this feat has to come from the Bastion dedication, not the Champion dedication. That's very important, because we can't take another dedication until we get 3 feats from the Bastion dedication. And now we come to the last archetype for this build, the Sentinel archetype. As with the Champion dedication, the Sentinel dedication isn't really going to help us, but it will give us access to another feat that will help us. And that is the last free archetype feat for this build, Armor Specialist. This will give us the armor specialization effect of our innovation armor, which innovation armors are always considered composites, which means we get some resistance to piercing damage, because we want to focus on melee attackers. This will give us some resistance to those bows that ranged attackers want to use. So we don't have to take the layered mesh modification if we think we're going to run into those. Alright, Ancestry feat time. So our first one is going to be Natural Ambition. And the feat we're going to take is Built-in Tools. So basically we pick 2 tool sets and they're part of our armor. Repair Kit and Healer's Tools, just straight up part of our armor. And they don't count towards our limit of tools that we can wear. So we could have those 2, plus Artisan's Tools if we wanted them. Not that we would in this build, but still, just saying. You experienced players probably thought I forgot about that. Nope. We're just taking it at first level as an Ancestry feat. Then of course, this is a teamwork build, so of course we're going to be taking Cooperative Nature for that +4 on aid checks. Next we have Scorching Disarm, a feat that makes the disarm action actually useful. When we regularly succeed on disarm, then the opponent takes 46 damage unless they drop the weapon. And if we happen to critically succeed, they take the damage and drop the weapon. And if we're legendary in athletics, it's 8d6. Then of course we're going to take Cooperative Soul for no more fails or crit fails on aid checks. And our last Ancestry feat for this build is going to be Blazing Aura. Because why not be able to do damage to enemies in a 20-foot emanation and quicken our allies for a round once a day? Seriously, of course we're taking this. This is a teamwork build, after all. And then we come to the general feats. Starting with Fleet, so that we can be as fast as possible. This is a slow build, but we don't want to be slow, so any extra speed we can get is going to be good. Then of course we're going to take Die Hard and Toughness like we always do, since, you know, we don't want to die. You probably saw this coming, but next is Canny Acumen for our reflex save, since that's going to be our lowest save. And finally, we're going to take Incredible Initiative. We want to go first in this build, especially if we're in the back somehow. This build is all about protecting our allies, so if an enemy is right next to the spellcaster at the beginning of combat, we want to go first so we can protect them. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. So if you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Pathfinder 2e teamwork content. You can also check out all the links in the description below. And of course, if you want to see more builds like this, you can check out these videos here. Remember, teamwork is vital, and I'll see you guys next time.